We have something really funny happening right now in Nachlaot, in my neighborhood. Natalie Portman is here. She's taken over the street right next to my house, and she's making a movie there. It's a movie. It's a movie of she's making a movie out of Amos Oz's amazing book, which is called Tale of Love and Darkness. It's basically the story of his life, his autobiography. And so right now, the street next to my house. They have transformed this street so that it looks exactly like a street in 1948, during the War of 1948, and like that when Jerusalem was under siege. And it's really fascinating. So I walked there this morning with my daughter, and we went to see the movie. And it's all these people walking around dressed up like in 1948 in this sort of black, severe kind of clothing, with all of this laundry hung up over the street as like in pre-dryer kind of era. And there's soldiers from the Israeli soldiers from that period, from the War of Independence, and it's just really, and there was even like a horse and a donkey, and my daughter was very excited about that. So it was really fascinating, and it reminded me of a conference that I attended this week. I attended a conference about the three principles, otherwise known as innate health, and the speaker was a woman. She's an expert on the three principles. Called her name is Kathy Cassie, and she was amazing. And so this approach, if you haven't heard about it, innate health is basically the approach is basically to get in touch with a sort of calm, content part of yourself, so that you can stay, or at least get back to a calm, content place, no matter what. So what, like, the main thing that I got out of the conference is a 2-day conference, so there's a lot of talking and a lot of learning going on. But the main thing that I got out of it was that she was talking about how the ideal state to be in is something that in innate health parlance they call the mind. In Hebrew, in Judaism, I think we would call it Yeshuv Hadat. So she draws it like this. It's sort of like a halo above like a person's head. It's just like a place of just like calm, content, mindful, being fully present, and just feeling content, like with whatever you're doing. And so the problem is, then she draws above the halo, above like the head, she draws like this. This is our thoughts. This is our thoughts. This is our thoughts. Our thoughts about what's happening. And I think specifically the problem is the thoughts that we're having about if I can use the example of the movie this morning, like we're still the wars that we're still fighting, the war of 1948 that we're still fighting, the war of 2048, I guess, that we're bracing for, that we're fearing, that we're frightened about, that we're planning for, all the wars of 1948 and 2048 that we're thinking about, and all the past battles that we're fighting, and all the future battles that we are preparing ourselves for. And I think that we tend to think, at least I tend to think, I do a lot of this in my mind. I'm fighting a lot, many times I'm fighting, past battles in my head, past battles with various people over various like incidents that happened in my life, and so I'm still like fighting those battles in my head, or I'm like bracing myself for future battles with all the various things, all the various possible threats or terrible things that could happen, bracing myself, emotionally for what's going to happen, as opposed to being in this place of mind, in this place of Yeshuv Hadat. And I think that if I ask myself, why do I live this way? Well, I think it's just a bad habit, just like, biting your nails, or whatever, bad smoking or drinking, or all the bad habits / addictions that we have. So this is just, it's like a bad habit that I have, negative thinking. But I think that it's somewhere deep down, I feel that this kind of thinking is keeping me safe. Like fighting the battle of 1948, fighting the war of 1948, or fighting the battle of 2048 is keeping me safe. But we did a really interesting exercise during the conference. Kathy Cassie had us go around and talk about really stupid things that we have done while we've been in this distracted kind of thinking mode, like the war of 1948, War of 2048, that kind of mode. So one woman said, I was really distracted one time, and I was thinking about like what was going to be, and I ended up instead of putting sugar in the cake, I put in salt. Okay, so everyone just sort of chuckled. But there were also some scary stories. One woman said that she'd been very distracted one morning, and she'd been shopping with her baby and had just like left her baby in the supermarket. Scary. So then she came back and got her, but it was scary, just like how when you're really distracted, the really stupid and even dangerous things that happen when you're in this distracted kind of mode and not like fully present where you are. And I have a story. It was like it's not a dangerous story, but I think it's equally stupid as leaving your baby in the supermarket. I went when I was in my 9th month of pregnancy. I went to the ATM and got out and wrote down to get out like a large sum of money, and then I just walked away without the money. Just left it there. By the time I'd gone back, then somebody had taken this the money that I had left very, very idiotically in the ATM, and then I had an excuse. I was in my 9th month of pregnancy, but the other week, like last week, I did the same thing, and I started walking away from the ATM. But then it started going beep, 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 and I was thinking, what? And so I turned around and I saw my money sitting in the ATM. I mean, so it just gives you a sense, like we think that when we're fighting those past battles and fighting the future battles and preparing for them, and that actually it's making us stronger and safer and whatever. But it's actually the opposite. It's making us more vulnerable. It's actually putting us, God forbid, in danger because we're not focused. So Kathy told an interesting story. She does a lot of work with inmates, a lot of work in the prisons, trying to teach these principles to people who really have a lot of difficulties with thinking, and also with mental illness and with addictions, and how to get these people basically how to get criminals back to this place of the soul of this Yishuv Hadad, so that they can like turn around their lives and start living lives that aren't lives of with hurting people and hurting society. So she's telling the story that one time she was in the jail, and one of these criminals, one of the inmates, started started flirting with her, and she said that because she was in such a present place, she says people think that it makes you sort of like hippy dippy, like I'm in Yishuv Hadad and I'm like happy and content and do whatever and everything's great. She said, but no, it just makes you very, very focused. She said at that moment, she said, back off now. That it really gave her, it put her, that because she's in this present, like happy, content, very present place, it makes her safe, because right away she's just hyper aware of what's happening and what's going on, and also threats and also dangerous situations. That makes you extra safe and extra strong. It makes you, when you're really present and really in this place of Yishuv Hadad, it makes you into a force to be reckoned with, as opposed to sort of this distracted person who's worried about what was and angry about what was and fearful about what's going to be. Okay, so another huge thing that I learned in the conference is that, and I think maybe this is like one of the most important things that I learned, is that, so I think all of us we've heard this advice before. We've heard this advice, stop worrying about the past, and stop, being angry at the past, and stop planning for the, and stop like living in the future, like what's going to be and what's going to be and what's going to be. So she said, sorry, one second. She said that what you do. So what do you do? So when people give this advice, it's very irritating. I find it very, very irritating when people say, well, just stop thinking about it. Just stop. If you're thinking about this irritating thing, just stop thinking about it. But I can't stop thinking about it. So what you do, the trick to getting rid of this, like the thinking about the War of 1948 and the War of 2048, what you do is you just stop judging yourself about it. So just have compassion for yourself. Like, okay, I'm just in that state now. I guess I'm just in the state of like obsessing about the War of 1948 and War of 2048. I'm just like in that sort of state now. Okay, it's reasonable. Okay. And if you stop judging yourself for it, and you stop like trying to fight it and thinking, well, how am I going to do it? And what positive thinking? Maybe I'll try and have positive thoughts now. Maybe I'll try and have grateful thoughts now. Maybe I'll try and do whatever. Instead of trying to like fight it and trying to and beating yourself up about all these obsessive thoughts about the past and the future, the way to have them just evaporate is to just stop thinking about them. Just stop worrying about them. Just stop judging yourself, and eventually, if you just say, okay, now I'm just in that kind of mode, I'm just feeling that way, I'm feeling fearful, I'm feeling stressed out, I'm feeling angry, I'm feeling whatever, and so that's the way it is. And don't fight it, and you'll see. I actually tried this yesterday. I was feeling really stressed out. I was like, oh no, only a day after the conference, and I'm already stressed out. I'm always stressed out about things that I shouldn't really be stressed out about, and I'm driving myself crazy, and I'm already feeling palpitations, and why am I so stressed out, and I'm going to have to do a meditation, and I was just like, okay, that's how I'm feeling. I'm feeling stressed out. And what I found is within like a few minutes, it just evaporates. All the because when like what locks that in place is the guilt and the judgment that we place on it. Okay, so just let yourself feel what you feel, and it will, and before you know it, you'll be back in that sort of present, content, happy place. No matter what's happening, no matter what's going on. So I want to bless all of us. There was something interesting that I noticed about the population of the population in attendance at this conference. So about half of the people in attendance were from mothers. It was sort of funny. This certain approach, it's very popular from women, possibly because Rabbi Michael Twersky of Milwaukee and his wife Rabbi Sanfegi Twersky, so they're huge proponents of this approach, and really like a lot of people who are in their community and who are their followers, then they learn about this approach and benefit from it. So it's the conference is about half out of around 70 people there. Around half the people were from mothers, and another quarter or so were actually war veterans. They're what you call Nechei Tzal, people who are IDF Israeli soldiers who were injured in various wars or during when they served in the army. And so there are people like there was one person without an eye, one person who's limping since he was injured in the Second Lebanon War several decades ago. And these and it was just interesting like to see that these people so these people like they live through like a real war. I don't know that beeping. 1 second. Okay, I'm gonna ignore it. So those people, the soldiers, they live through an actual war. But the thing is, so these from mothers, they didn't live through war. I don't think that any of those women were served in the military. But we in our own minds, we live through wars. Like we live through challenges, nisyonot, and like we're also like those people are traumatized through real wars, and we're traumatized through the wars that we've fought in our lives and difficult experiences. And I want to bless all of us that through learning about these principles, and I want to recommend that there's a site. It's a Jewish site started by Rabbi Shaul Rosenblatt. He has a center called Tikkun in London, and the site is called Tikkun TIKUN.co.uk. And there you can have there's all these free downloads of classes about innate health / the 3 principles, and you can learn about it from a Jewish point of view, so I hope that all of us by accessing this that we'll be able to access this place of Yeshuva Dad and stop fighting the war of 1948 and the war of 2048, but then when you do find yourself in that mode, to just accept it, have compassion for yourself, and before you know it, you'll be back in that place, that good place, the good, content, happy, present place. Bezrat Hashem. I want to bless all future shmams with an amazing, amazing week.